This will be Tuesday, November 3rd, advanced class. We're going to get into a story called Retrieve Reformation and talk about the Story Mountain. Boink, boink, focus. Book report, book choice is due by Friday. Story Mountain. Story Mountain. Oh yeah, just kidding. First, download this story. We're going to be talking about it today. Follow the directions on there. Find the one that says Retrieve Reformation, and that'll help you out. And you're going to have to copy down all these notes into your notebook. It's our second bell work. It's super exciting. And we're going to draw a mountain to go along with it. We're going to help you out. Mr. Brovicast, I didn't catch that. Well, it's on video, so just rewind it and pause. Oh yeah, that's right. You're welcome. Thank you. And then, oh, there it is again too. Now pause. Good job. Now unpause it. We're going to keep going. All right. The blue part that's the shorter explanation to try and help you out. So the exposition will be the boring beginning stuff where they're talking and stuff like that. Rising action is where it gets all exciting that makes you want to read the book. And then the climax is the major, oh my God, kind of moment when we're reading it and you're like, how could that possibly happen? And then the falling action is where we have to explain that moment about why it matters to us. And then the resolution is the boring ending stuff. They're going through and telling you about how they ride off into the moonlight and everything is great and they fall. With the mountain, here's where you get to draw, for the most part, they go in order. So you start off with the flat part, which is boring. That got exciting. Ironic. The flat part, which is boring, and the flat, boring part at the beginning is called? That was a good exposition voice. And from exposition, we then get to the exciting part where we're going up the mountain, and that is?
Rising action!
Wow. Way to make rising action sound exciting. And then you get to the very top, the most exciting spot, and that is?
Climax!
Oh my goodness.
You guys amuse me. And then you get to the climax at the top. Once we've had the climax, the most exciting part, then we get to the?
Falling action!
Oh, I haven't done this too long. Falling action. And then you get to the last boring part, which again will be the?
Resolution!
Which apparently excites one of you. I like boring and stuff. So as long as you have those labeled and you know your little connecty bits, then you should be good along with whatever weird doodly stuff you put onto the inside of it. Then we're going to take a look at an actual story that we've read, and we're going to see how well you can connect these things to an actual story that we've read. For the story of the fisherman, so we have these 5 parts where it says, the fisherman only fishes a certain number of times, and his final time brings in a jar. And then we discover the genie wants to kill the fisherman, and the poor guy must find a way to survive. Then the fisherman plans to get the genie back in the jar. The genie begs to be released from the jar. The fisherman explains his future plans to the genie. These are the 5 parts, sort of broken up. The first one there where it says he's only going to fish a certain number of times. This is the boring stuff at the beginning. He's like, I'm going to go fishing 4 times. If I don't catch anything, my kids are going to die. Which, I know, kid death does sound exciting, but in the story it was boring. So what do you call that beginning part?
Exposition.
Then while fishing, he finds a jar, and out of the jar comes a genie, and the genie says, I'm going to kill you! And all of a sudden you're like, Mr. Brovicast, the story got somewhat mildly entertaining. And that becomes the?
Rising action.
And then before the guy can die, you guys got all excited trying to figure out what death he was going to choose. Instead, he gets the genie back into the jar, and you're like, oh my God, you're not going to die! And that becomes the?
Climax.
And then he explains, the genie begins to beg how he can get released. He's like, please don't lock me in here, it's dark and I'm lonely. And that becomes the?
Falling action.
And of course it ends with the fisherman being all boring, like, I'm going to tell you a story while you're sitting here stuck in a jar because fishermen are boring. And that becomes the?
Resolution.
Nailed it. Now, let's jumblify it. Jumblify. And so now, for the Lady and the Tiger, they're all in different order. So you have to sort of, if you can match up which order they're supposed to go in. The princess discovers what is behind each door and then decides which one to point to for the boy. The girl is caught saying love to the gardener's son, and he is put on trial using the 2 doors. We find out that the 2 characters love each other. We are robbed of whatever this one is because the story ends suddenly, and the gardener's son walks over to the right-hand door and opens it, and we don't get to find out what is there. Exposition, boring stuff. Which one of these is the exposition, boring stuff? Doyle?
We find out the 2 characters love each other.
Is correct. When they love each other, I'm like, oh, love is boring. And then we get to rising action, where it becomes slightly more exciting. Chaffee?
The girl is caught saying love.
Is correct. Like, oh, now all of a sudden love is exciting. They're going to die. And then we get to the rising action, and then we get to the climax, the most exciting, well, for this story, the most exciting part. Cover?
Princess discovers what's behind each door.
I know, like, what? She could. Mr. Brovicast, she found out behind the doors, and she has to pick he's going to die or not. That's so much fun. And then we get to the falling action. Ella?
And he's put on shy.
Nice done. The gardener's son walking over the door, and he gets to open it. Although you could argue that could be more climax even, whatever. And then at the very end of it, our rising. Resolution. Big word. The resolution, Abigail.
We are robbed from this story.
This one doesn't have a resolution. In theory, it should be when we find out what comes out of the door, like, oh, I was right, or whatever. But no, we get nothing because the story hates us. Todd?
Are they color-coded? Red or even? Like climax is red, because it was like that the other time.
Yeah, because I just did that same thing, and I just sort of mixed them around because I figured you guys wouldn't pay attention to that. It went black, blue, red, black, blue.
Yeah,
I
paid
did.
attention.
I did. Yeah.
We're smart, Mr. Brovie. I blinky blinky. So special. Levi?
Climax has an X in it, and the X in climax stands for exciting.
Yes. Although rising action is also exciting.
But not as exciting.
And
as
action
climax.
sounds like it has an X in it. Action. See? Huh?
I worry about you sometimes.
Act-
Skylar?
And
Yeah.
just because there's an X in exposition doesn't mean it's exciting.
That is also true.
Extra
There is
boring?
An extra.
Yeah, it's a long word
Boring.
though. It's too many syllables.
As long as you've got all that, then phew, we're good to go, and we're down to there unless you're still copying it down for some reason. But now we're going to get into our actual story-ish bits. With Retrieved Reformation, a little bit of a heads up. One, it was written like 100 years ago. But it's okay. It's actually still a fun story, even for 100. It's still one that's going to make you angry. Plus, you can't really tell it was written 100 years ago, except for at one point, instead of a car, they get into a horsey carriage. Everything else is pretty much dead on. But the guy who wrote it, O. Henry, was put in jail because poor choices. While he was in jail, he wrote a whole bunch of short stories that are actually pretty cool. But apparently when you're in jail, you get bored. And he spent his time reading dictionaries. So a lot of his stories, he just like throws in big words. He's just like, I'm going to throw in a big word here, and a big word there. So don't let it throw you. You'll still be able to figure out what's going on. It's just every once in a while, instead of saying like it was peaceful, he was like, the evening was a Pacific thoroughfare. You're like, what? It just means that it was like a peaceful. So just roll with it. Trust me, you'll get through it. It'll be okay. This little beginning part, we're going to get through the exposition. It's basically going to introduce our main character, a dude by the name of Jimmy. My question for you is, we're going to get into Jimmy. I want you to figure out whether Jimmy is a good person or a bad person. Now, not whether Jimmy has done good things or bad things, but whether you think Jimmy himself is a good person or a bad person. Like what you can tell me about him, if that makes sense to you. Because we're going to find out Jimmy's in jail, but not every person in jail is a bad person. But he might be. He might be horrible. I'm just letting you know, don't judge him by the location. Bailey.
Didn't you already tell us
Which part?
if he was good or bad person?
How so?
Because you said he like was a good person.
He
or,
was
like,
trying to do
he was trying to be a good person and like.
No. He said he was trying to make good choices.
Oh, at the very beginning of class?
Yeah.
Oh, that's later on. He makes other choices, but it could be. You're not supposed to pay attention to the beginning of class. I was just babbling then. Stop trying to learn. All right, back to the story thing. And you're going to figure out where our story's taking place. Stop learning, you horrible children. Retrieved Reformation. A guard came into the prison shoe shop where Jimmy Valentine was assiduously stitching uppers. That means he's putting shoes together. Because when you're in jail, they give you a job to do, and he's just sewing shoes. And escorted him to the front office. There, the warden handed Jimmy his pardon, which had been signed that morning by the governor. Jimmy took it in a tired kind of way. He had served nearly 10 months of a 4-year sentence. He had expected to stay only about 3 months at the longest. When a man with as many friends on the outside as Jimmy Valentine had is received in the stir, it is hardly worthwhile to cut his hair. Do you guys know what the stir is?
No.
The prison. Because you go stir crazy inside there, so this is called the stir. So it just means prison. Someday when you guys go there, you'll understand.
What?
Now,
Do you know from experience?
now Valentine said the warden. "You'll go out in the morning, brace up, make a man of yourself. You're not a bad fellow at heart. Stop cracking safes and live straight." "Me?" said Jimmy in surprise. "Why, I never cracked a safe in my life." No, laughed the warden. "Of course not. Let's see now. How was it you happened to get sent up on that Springfield job? Was it because you wouldn't prove an alibi for fear of compromising somebody in extremely high-toned society? Or was it simply a case of a mean old jury that had it in for you? It's always one or the other with you innocent victims." "Me?" said Jimmy, still blankly virtuous. "Why, warden, I never was in Springfield in my life." "Take 'em back, Cronin," said the warden. "And fix 'em up with outgoing clothes. Unlock 'em at 7 in the morning. Let 'em come to the bullpen. You better think over my advice, Valentine." Quick pause, although we've already said it. Where is the story taking place so far?
Prison.
He's in prison. What's he in prison for?
Cracking safes.
What is cracking safes?
Breaking in and stealing.
Breaking in and stealing stuff, right? It has nothing to do with actual crackers. They're delicious. They are. But here it's just the idea that he breaks into safes. I'm sorry. He's accused of breaking into safes and stealing stuff. Is he guilty?
We don't know.
Okay.
He says he's not.
There you go. He claims to be innocent, but of course the court system says that he's guilty, and so that's where you have a little balance thing coming out. But either way, oh wait, how long has he been in prison?
10 months.
How long was he supposed to be in prison?
3.
And so he got out early because he has connections, mobbed up. He's got friends on the outside, and so they were able to pull some strings and get him released. At 7:15 on the next morning, Jimmy stood in the warden's outer office. He had on a suit of the villainously fitting ready-made clothes and a pair of the stiff, squeaky shoes that the state furnishes to its discharged compulsory guests, criminals that are being let go. The clerk handed him a railroad ticket and the $5 bill which the law expected him to rehabilitate himself into a good citizenship and prosperity. The warden gave him a cigar and shook hands. Valentine 9762 was chronicled on the books, stamp, pardoned by governor, and Mr. James Valentine walked out into the sunshine. Disregarding the song of the birds, the waving green trees, and the smell of the flowers, Jimmy headed straight for a restaurant. There he tasted the first sweet joys of liberty in the shape of a broiled chicken and a bottle of white wine, followed by a cigar, a grade better than the one the warden had given him. From there, he proceeded leisurely to the train depot. He tossed a quarter into the hat of a blind man sitting by the door and boarded his train. 3 hours set him down in a little town near the state line. He went to the cafe of one Mike Dolan and shook hands with Mike, who was behind the bar. "Sorry we couldn't make it sooner, Jimmy, my boy," said Mike, "but we had that protest from Springfield to buck against, and the governor nearly balked. You feeling all right?" "Fine," said Jimmy. "You got my key?" He got his key and went upstairs, unlocking the door of a room at the rear. Everything was just as he had left it. There on the floor was even still Ben Price's collar button that had been torn from that eminent detective's shirt band when they had overpowered Jimmy to arrest him. Pause. Let's see, he gets released. Oh, when they say Valentine 9762, do you know what Valentine 9762 is referring to? Hess?
Like his number?
Yeah, the little prison number when you have to hold it up in front of your chest and you have a little number when you're in there. So that's what he gets released from. And then he goes out and gets himself, the first thing he does when he gets released is? Yeah, get himself some food and some liquor and there you go, a cigar to go along with the same thing. Or at least he gets himself some wine. And then, alright, is he good or bad so far?
Good.
Why do you say he's a criminal? Why do you guys go to good already? Ella?
Because, well, for starters, he put a quarter in the blind man's hat.
Alright, so that makes him a good person?
Well, no, but
Just checking.
it was a nice act.
It was a nice act. Alright, I'll give you that. That he did throw a quarter in at the blind man. Is that all it took to convince you guys of throwing one quarter at a blind person and you guys were all thinking he's a good person? Levi?
Yeah, it hasn't really seemed, his demeanor hasn't really seemed like he's a bad. His demeanor hasn't really made him seem like a bad person. He seems more polite and
Okay.
rehabilitated.
Alright. Rehabilitated. So you're saying that if he was guilty, he would definitely be fixed?
Strive.
Right. Garrison?
I think he's a good person because he got a pardon instead of staying in jail for 4 years, which meant he was good in prison.
Okay. Alright, I can see the party part. Cover?
I say he's bad because from what he's been talking with that last guy, they've been planning to get him out with a pardon from the governor.
That is true. He was in cahoots, I believe is what they would say, with whoever this Mike Dolan fellow is, who's the guy that runs the place where he stayed. Parodi?
I think that he's good because, like, the warden, he said to Jimmy that he wasn't a bad guy.
He did. He did say something like, you're not a horrible person or something like that. But he could be wrong. I mean, he's a warden. 3Q?
So it was talking about how Jimmy doesn't Jimmy doesn't think he's guilty or whatever.
Innocent.
He doesn't think he's.
No, he thinks he's innocent.
Yeah, he thinks he's innocent, and we don't really have proof of whether he did it or not.
That's true. Doyle?
This isn't like extremely valid, but
Great
I
selling
feel like
point.
there wouldn't be much of a story if he was actually good and he just continued to do good things for the rest of the story.
So you're thinking he's bad?
Yeah.
I like where you're going with that. I like bad. That is not valid, but I like your thinking. Last one, Ella.
I think he's a naughty boy because nobody,
Oh dear.
nobody's that good in prison and then gets a pardon and then goes and meets with everybody.
So he
Nobody's
probably
that good.
What about
shanked
people
someone
who are
with a
accused?
sharpened toothbrush at some point.
Well,
Let's find out in this next part if this next part will help guide you on whether you think he's good or bad. By the way, he's now went to the room that he was staying in before that they've been holding on to this whole time. That says, oh, what do we find on the floor when he walks in?
A detective's button.
The button from the guy that arrested him. That apparently he put up a fight and a struggle and ripped the guy's shirt, and there's still a button sitting there on the ground. If he was innocent, you would fight, correct? So maybe that's what it was. Pulling out from the wall a folding bed, Jimmy slid back a panel in the wall and dragged out a dust-covered suitcase. He opened this and gazed fondly at the finest set of burglar's tools in the East. It was a complete set, made of specially tempered steel, the latest designs in drills, punches, braces, and bits, jimmies, clamps, augers, with 2 or 3 novelties invented by Jimmy himself, in which he took pride. Over $900 they cost to have them made at a place they won't tell you, so you can't go get your own made. A place where they make such things for the profession. In half an hour, Jimmy went down the stairs and through the cafe. He was now dressed in tasteful and well-fitting clothes and carried his dusted and cleaned suitcase in his hand. By the way, yeah.
Is this homework?
No.
Okay.
Don't read the story. That actually, the last thing is I would say for homework is do not read the story.
Okay.
So there you go. What does he pull out of his room from a hidey spot?
Safe cracking tools.
So is he innocent?
No.
Or very well framed? And I'm sure he will go right to the authorities and say, hey, someone stuck a whole thing of burglar tools in a hidden thing that I happen to know and wouldn't know where it was. 3Q?
I was gonna say something about Ant-Man and the fact that
He was also sort of a
he was
burglar.
he was a burglar.
And a good person at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, what was Jimmy arrested for doing?
Safe cracking.
Safe cracking. Keep that in mind. He's a little joke coming up here in a moment. In half an hour, Jimmy went downstairs and through the cafe. He was now dressed in tasteful and well-fitting clothes and carried his dusted and cleaned suitcase in his hand. You got anything on? Asked Mike Dolan genially. Me? Said Jimmy in a puzzled tone. I don't understand. I'm representing the New York Amalgamated Short Snap Biscuit Cracker and Frazzled Wheat Company. This statement delighted Mike to such an extent that Jimmy had to take a seltzer and milk on the spot. He never touched hard drinks. He got arrested for doing what?
Safe cracking.
He's carrying around a box that has what inside of it?
Safe cracking.
Safe cracking tools. And the guy says, do you have anything going on? What's the question the guy's asking? Are you,
Going to crack a safe.
yeah, going out to go crack a safe? And Jimmy's like, what? Me? No, I'm innocent. He's like, I sell crackers. And so he's like, I work for the cracker selling company.
Oh, it wasn't
Safe
fun.
cracking, cracker. And so that's like his joke. He carries around the box that says crackers on it. Because, you know, witty criminals. And so apparently Mike Dolan's like, oh, you're a knee slapper. And he gets all entertained. The problem is it says that he never touches hard drinks. Do you know what hard drinks would be?
Alcohol.
Yes, we do, Miss Perfect, all the time. Doyle?
Alcoholic drink.
Yes. It says he apparently does not touch the alcohol drinks because that would be bad. But he does drink, what they say here is seltzer and milk. Do you guys know what seltzer is?
Yeah, I do.
Starting to worry me. Doyle?
Is it like the fizzy little
Doesn't it make you feel
I
better?
don't
Tablet. Doesn't
Yes,
it make
it's
you feel better?
Sprite without the lemon juice in it.
Yeah.
And so he takes a seltzer and milk as his drink of choice. So if you want to go home and feel like an old-time criminal, get milk and Sprite, pour them together, chug it, and go, I'm an old-time criminal.